Well, the floodwaters across North Dakota and other parts of the northern plains that have been very, very wet this spring, that is beginning to recede, but the soil remains very wet. And in some parts, particularly notably North Dakota, we have this problem of many areas we're getting to the latest that we can plant certain crops because of insurance purposes. In other words, it's too late to insure. But there will still be some last-minute planting as we do have finally some favorable weather in the far north. Overall, there are patterns of signs of change in the weather pattern. The rain will be shifting into different areas, I think, of the country, the more persistent rainfall, but that change will happen fairly slowly. And there still is room for more rainfall into the northern plains. And also the warmth of summer. As the calendar turns into June, it looks like so far, fairly standard warm weather patterns, no real heat waves moving into the region. As we look at the pattern right now, troughiness still persists over the west. A little bit of ridginess exists in the east, a little bit of southwest to northeast flow. And this Memorial Day weekend, we're getting one more round of rain in the northern part of the midsection of the continent. And that is unwelcome rain for the most part. Not going to be as heavy as some of the April and early May storms, but still going to be fairly wet, especially through the early part of the week. That'll be rain-cooled air then into the northern plains, and it looks like a few days, even as we begin to dry out this week, where at least in North Dakota it's going to be so cool, there's not going to be that much room for evaporation. Later in the week, that will change. Eastern Corn Belt, much of the Corn Belt, in fact, will be quite warm over the next week or so. The hot weather representing temperatures at or near 90 or above. The warm weather where we're looking at mostly 70s and 80s, and still some of this pretty cool weather with some stuff around the 50s in through North Dakota through parts of the week. The only other really cool spot will be up in the higher elevations of the Mountain West. But as we go toward this transition into the second week of this forecast, which puts us into really the second week in June, we're going to start seeing some troughiness being carved out in the west and some ridging coming up in the middle. That's going to pull up at least a few days of pretty warm weather. Might get close to 90 into parts of South Dakota a couple of days in that second week of June, and bring at least some temps to 80 or near 80 or into the 80s into parts of North Dakota. I don't think that's going to stay too long. I don't see a really warm weather pattern setting up just yet. There are signs we may get there eventually. This week, showers continue across the north. A lot of this in the Dakotas and Minnesota will be in the first half of the week, not the second half of the week. Southwest remains dry. Southeast will get some usual thunderstorms, some wet weather across the coast. And then in the second week, notice I'm really talking anomalies. It'll be above normal precipitation in the southeast. Not saying we'll be rain-free in the north. I just don't see anything excessive into much of the northern plains and upper Midwest.